Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Health, Wealth, and Anything Else. Everybody, welcome back again. Here we are for another week. Lots and lots to talk about. Well, another 2 weeks. Doing every 2 weeks now. I keep forgetting. So there's lots to cover, lots to talk about. There's lots been going on. First up, we'll jump to the obvious one, which we kind of left off with last time. The whole of the last podcast basically was a crypto update, talking about FTX and everything going on with that. So let's catch up a bit with that because there's been even more going on there, more stuff coming out, more developments, and the markets are still kind of feeling all the fallout from it. So I can't remember exactly where we was up to the last time I was speaking about it, but they've basically just gone bankrupt there and everything had kind of gone fully up. So they've now got, Sam has stepped aside as CEO. There's a new CEO come in to oversee the bankruptcy and the Chapter 11 and all of this stuff. And more stuff is starting to come out about it, more and more crazy stuff. So it appears that they barely had any proper financial records. Basically, nothing was kept and done as it probably should be. Apparently, they were audited. That seemed a bit strange, and obviously, it must have been strange if they were being audited and passed fine when they had basically no financials. Apparently, as well, a load of employees they had listed as working for them aren't even real. So I don't know if that was, them putting down fake employees so they could pay themselves more or to look like they were bigger than they were. I'm not too sure, but essentially, some of the people that were there weren't even real. So Sam Bankman-Fried, the owner, he basically gave himself a personal loan of $1 billion from FTX, which I think was used to buy real estate. So and that was customers' funds too. That wasn't like just money the business had they've made in profit. That's customer funds. He lent himself a billion. His chief engineer was given a loan of 543 million, and this is all customer funds too. So unbelievable amount of stuff going on there, and it makes it even more kind of suspicious how big they got, how quick, and how they seem to have this great reputation. So, seen a lot of it was essentially FTX was kind of ploy of the US government to basically either bring, some people said bring crypto down. I think bring crypto down because crypto in itself and blockchain is the future of money, and it's what governments are going to use because the technology allows them to make their CBDCs, which they want, and they can have complete track of everybody's money. So they're not trying to kill the technology. I think that if it was them doing it, it's to try and be able to bring in more regulation and get more control of the industry, as opposed to kill it completely. So that's a theory and seems a very viable one because he donated a lot of money to the Democrats. They kind of come from nowhere. FTX, they've been the media portrayal of them has been quite favorable. Even this week, there was an article from might be the New York Times on Caroline. The She was the head of Alameda. Basically, an article on her, basically being positive, trying to say that she was good at what she did and all this other stuff. And obviously, they've just, you know, been in charge of one of the biggest scams of all time that's just collapsed. So the fact they've still got the media portraying them well definitely seems very dodgy. So there's a lot's gone on there which seems strange. Another thing to mention, the guy who's in to oversee the bankruptcy, his name's like John Ray, 23rd or something. But now he apparently dealt with the bankruptcy of Enron as well. But I just see a few things popping up this week about him that there's basically nothing about him on the internet. There's no records, no photos, no nothing. It seems to hardly even exist. People wondering if it's even a real person or if it was a whole dodgy thing, and then they're just kind of cleaning up after themselves. So no one knows. Some of the stuff is theory. Obviously, in terms of actual amounts of money that have been disappearing and whatever, where there's records of that and stuff on chain, that's we can say that's facts. But some of this other stuff is theory, but a lot of it sounds like it could well be true. Now, there was another very strange development last week. So obviously withdrawals were paused, they filed for bankruptcy, and then suddenly people noticed that suddenly withdrawals started up again. FTX said that basically it was for customers within the Bahamas, which is where they're based, saying that the Bahamas SEC had basically said that they had to pay out to people within Bahamas. So this led to there was people on Twitter openly asking, if anyone has a Bahamian residency or anything who can verify me as in the Bahamas on FTX, I will give you a portion of the money so that I can get it out, which is illegal, is fraud, but people were desperate to get their money out, and there was people doing that. But then it seemed that they weren't actually told to do that by the Bahamas SEC, and then obviously FTX is based in the Bahamas, so all the people who work there are in the Bahamas and Sam himself. So then people are like you know, they're probably just paying out themselves. Then on, I think it was the Friday night, there was in quotation marks, hack on FTX for, I think they drained about $600 million worth. But again, looked very suspicious. A lot of people thinking it was some kind of insider doing it, as opposed to an outsider, whether that was someone who worked there or whether it was Sam himself. They were saying that, again, they said the Bahamas told them, instructed them to drain the liquidity for the bankruptcy, which apparently wasn't true. But then later on, the Bahamas claimed that actually they did tell them to do that, but no one's exactly sure if they did or not because now, right this moment, on the Sunday, that wallet is currently dumping its Ethereum on chain. So Ethereum is dumping quite big today because that wallet that drained it, because obviously the wonder of blockchain is you can see everything that happens. So people can track where the money's gone to. We're not sure who owns it, what their plans are, but they can track it. So it's currently dumping a load of Ethereum, and people are not sure why, not sure who it is, but it doesn't seem like dumping lots of it in one go, dumping the price doesn't seem like if it was the Bahamas SEC, if they had any idea how crypto works, I don't think they would dump it all in one go because you're going to lose value. Now, we talked about the contagion before, and there's already a couple platforms, BlockFi. Basically, I think I mentioned them before. They was in trouble. They're basically gone. Now, another big one is Genesis. So Genesis are a very big platform for lending within crypto. So a huge amount on there. Now they're supposedly in trouble. Their new loan applications there have been paused, and they have an arm, I suppose they call it, like a Gemini platform that's a part of them, where people earn. So that you deposit your crypto and stake it and earn whatever. They've paused withdrawals. They're supposedly in big trouble, and Genesis as a whole could be. So they initially said they had about $7 million worth of exposure to FTX, which isn't really that much in the grand scheme of things. But now apparently it's up to 175 million. It seems a lot of people at first seem to say that they had no exposure whatsoever. And then as stuff's come out over time, we found out they actually do have a lot more exposure than they were saying, which is just people trying to not initiate a bank run on their platform. Because essentially that's what took FTX down, and that's what would take a lot of platforms down. Like I said, even a regular high street bank, if they have a bank run on it, it would take them down because none of these places have all the money sitting there to pay out if everyone wants to withdraw. So all of these platforms and exchanges, they're trying to show and reassure people that they have got the liquidity they need and they're not in trouble so that people will not rush and withdraw because no matter how much liquidity they say they've got, if everyone wanted to withdraw, they've not got enough. So they're trying to reassure people. So everyone seems to be underplaying their exposure to FTX, but everyone kind of knows that actually they all must have higher exposure to FTX because the amount of money that was on FTX, the amount that was used, clearly a lot of people were exposed to it. So they look like they could be in trouble. Also, they lent 3AC, Three Arrows Capital, who went down along with Luna earlier this year for the big crash in, I think, June and July. They lent them 2.3 billion. I imagine a huge amount of that will have been written off as a loss from when 3AC went under. In To give you an idea of the size, in Q4 2021, they had $50 billion worth of loans on the platform. So essentially what it is, the loan platform is you've got some, I don't know, you've got some crypto, say you've got some BTC, you don't want to sell it, but you want to free up some capital to be able to buy and sell some others, but you want to keep your BTC long term. You put your BTC on the platform, say you've got 10 grand BTC, you put that on there, and they will loan you a certain value against it, whatever that is, whichever percent. So normally they have to be over collateralized. So maybe you can loan 70% of the worth of your BTC. So you could get 7,000. You can go and do whatever you need to with that. Maybe you're going to quickly buy and sell a few things, or you're going to trade it on futures. And then when you want to get your BTC back out, obviously you have to come back and then clear your loan, pay off that 7,000 and whatever interest to get your BTC out. So that's essentially a very simplified version of how they do it. So they had $50 billion worth of loans. I don't know how much exactly they've got now, but in active. Oh no, actually I do. I did find that figure. See, look, I do my job. 12.5 billion in active loans currently. Now I don't know if that is the exact amount of money they've loaned out. If that's what the collateral they've got is worth, I'm not sure. But I mean, that's still a lot of money. So if they were to get in trouble and go down, 2.5 billion, that's a lot. That's going to have a big effect. They have 31 billion in spot trades, 21 billion derivative trades. There's a lot of money going through that platform, and they're pretty desperately trying to raise $1 billion by Monday. Apparently, they need it by Monday. It's looking very unlikely they're going to get it, which is going to leave them in a not great position. So not sure where it's going to go from there. But if they do go under, I think that's going to cause another reasonable size drop in price and probably going to affect a few more platforms and exchanges. So that's Gemini and Genesis there. Gemini looks like that's pretty much definitely going to be gone even if Genesis survives. And on that kind of topic, Ledger, who of course sell the cold wallets, Ledger and Teresa are probably the two that you'd want to go for if you're going to go for one. They actually saw 3 consecutive days of record-breaking sales this week, which shows you that people are understanding that you shouldn't be keeping all your money on an exchange, but it also shows that people are realizing too late. You should, other than what you're actively trading, if you're actively trading on exchange, you need a certain amount there to trade with. Everything else, unless you need it specifically on exchange for a reason, it should be in your cold storage wallet or hot storage wallet. But obviously, cold storage is safer. And that's what you should have been already doing. Obviously, lots of people weren't. People now rush in to buy cold storage wallets, and hopefully, they're going to be more careful. But obviously, as we always say, not your keys, not your coin, and don't use an exchange like a bank to just leave your money sitting there. And to be honest, a bank is pretty much as unsecure as an exchange, to be honest. Because like I said before, if everyone tries to withdraw from banks, they go down too, and you'd lose your money. So either way, it's kind of the same. So that's pretty much where we are. It's obviously developing still every day. Like I said originally when it happened, it'd be a few weeks for everything to play out. So I don't think it's done yet. There's going to be more stuff happen. I believe we will go lower. Um, yeah, we could head down towards 10. 10 is not impossible to get that low. I had my original estimate from the beginning of this year was between 10 and 14 as a bottom. So, I mean, we're not far from there now. 6 months ago, hardly anyone would have even believed we was going to get this low. So we could get that low now. I think with so much going on right now, I think it's more than likely that we bottom now within this scenario. But there could be more coming that's going to cause that. Recently, last couple of days, there has been a couple of small caps with some crazy looking pumps. Maybe SNM or something like that. Pumped about 5,000% in 2 days. Crazy. I mean, small caps are kind of easier to manipulate the price because they have a smaller market cap, but they're not as liquid. But there's a couple of small caps been going off recently. So, if you're brave enough to risk some things like that, there's potentially some money to be made. But right now, I'd say it's better to play it safe, personally, unless it's kind of money you can afford to lose. But there's always money to be made, but you want to be protecting what you've got for now, what you've got left. There's a whole thing going on with Twitter at the moment, since obviously Elon Musk has taken over Twitter. He bought it, and he's been making some big changes. And what he's trying to do is make it a viable business. I think there's good lessons in what he's doing for business, for people who are looking to run a business and make a business and make something profitable. Basically, he's just literally clearing it out and starting over, which is what it needed. So Twitter, supposedly, the numbers that come out, Twitter was apparently losing about $4 million a day. That's ridiculous. For a platform the size of Twitter, and they're losing $4 million a day is like unacceptable. Like, what were the people who were running it doing? And he's come in and he's looking to make it profitable. He's made a lot of changes. Some people might like some, they might not. He's cleared out the stuff. So they apparently had a team of over 7,500 people. And he's basically cleared it out down to about 50 engineers. And Twitter's running just fine with that. The majority of people were basically doing nothing. Just turn up to work, chill on a beanbag, drink a coffee, chat, do the odd thing. And he's basically clearing it out. Like, if you want to run a business, you need to streamline it. If you want to make it successful and profitable, you streamline it. You don't need unnecessary expenses, and that's exactly what he's doing, cutting it down, trying to make it profitable. So he was originally, I don't know if he's still sticking with it. The idea at first was that they were selling kind of the blue ticks at a certain amount. You had to pay like a monthly subscription to it, and to get like a better version of Twitter, like Twitter Blue or something. I didn't look massively into it, but that's I don't know if he's still doing it, because lots of people were basically getting paying for a verified tag when they actually weren't verified. They were a fake version, and then there was all kinds of stuff going on. Apparently, one I think it was a pharmaceutical company from America. I don't know the name of them. Their share prices basically absolutely plummeted because someone made a fake version of them, of their company, verified it, and did a tweet saying that basically they're going to be selling insulin super cheap to America. That now they're not going to be, insulin in America is ridiculously overpriced. It's a rip-off. That's something that people need to, you know, keep themselves alive, essentially, diabetics, and it's an absolute rip-off. But they basically tweeted that they were going to sell it super cheap, and their share price has just absolutely plummeted. So I think he might have rethought some of those ideas. I think they need to find a way to completely verify people properly before doing that. But he's looking at making it actually make money. If you want a business, you need profit to be coming in regularly, and you need to streamline it. So that is there. You can look at what he's doing and take lessons from it. People have been criticizing him, saying he doesn't know what he's doing this, he's doing that. Look how many successful companies this guy's made, how much money he's worth. I think you can let him go on with it and assume that he knows what he's doing, and wait for the final the final product, see what he gets to. One other angle of it is that some people are saying that what he might be essentially doing is clearing everything out and then basically declare bankruptcy to Twitter, which would then allow him to kind of offset the loss of the purchase of it and go bankrupt against his taxes. Which, I've kind of mentioned this before about smart people, smart money, these big businessmen or business ladies, business people who are making all this money, and they know how money works and they can be smart. And you can do something like that. Bankruptcy can be used to offset tax for years. So he could be doing that, and then he can literally scrape the barrel, get all the rubbish out, and just start over. So people are kind of thinking that may be what he's kind of going for, which really, from a business point of view, makes a lot of sense, really, because he gets the benefit of the tax write-offs from the kind of bankruptcy, and he can also just literally start over. So apparently they were giving, each employee was getting about $400 worth a day for a lunch, or like they were paying $400 worth a day to put on lunch for these employees, half of which weren't even in the office. So that's just pretty ridiculous. No wonder they were losing 4 million a month. A day, 4 million a day was, yeah, that's crazy. So if you want to get an idea on some business tips, watch what's going on with Twitter and what Elon's doing, and I'm pretty sure that most of the stuff he does is probably pretty good advice and pretty good things to follow. The World Cup. The World Cup's coming up, and this has been in the news a bit because Qatar has, at the last minute, apparently it's at the last minute, banned alcohol. Apparently now, I think from what it ban alcohol everywhere except for very specific fan zones where you can purchase alcohol. The rest of it you can't. Um, Obviously, if it's a last second decision, this could have been planned earlier beforehand, but people are making it into such a big thing. Like Qatar is it's a Muslim country. They don't drink alcohol there, don't really have alcohol. You can't drink alcohol there normally or buy it. So what do people expect? You're asking, well, not asking. You're having this country hosting the World Cup. What do you expect? You've got to respect their country, respect their beliefs. You're in their country, so if they say no alcohol, then no alcohol. If you want to go, then you just have no alcohol and watch football. What I don't understand why it's such a big problem that you can't have a drink while you're watching football. You're there to watch football, or you should be there just to watch football. You don't need to get drunk, just watch the game. So that's just kind of blown out of proportion with it all, really. And a lot of people, trying to jump on board and virtue signal and all this rubbish with it, but it's entirely their prerogative, it's their country, and it's their culture, and people should respect it. Obviously, the real kind of travesty is that it was very obviously FIFA were bribed to give the World Cup to Qatar because essentially, with no disrespect to Qatar, it's a terrible location for a World Cup. It's too hot. They've tried to make air conditioned stadiums and all of this. It didn't have the infrastructure in place and everything, and it's not, it's a poor choice. The World Cup should have been going somewhere else where football is one of the main things and could have hosted it. And everyone knows that FIFA were paid for doing that. FIFA are absolutely corrupt. I mean, I don't follow it so much now. Definitely under Sepp Blatter, they must be corrupt. They probably still are. So that was the kind of travesty. If Qatar want to ban alcohol sales, I really don't see the issue with that. That's not a problem. It just shouldn't have been awarded there in the first place, really. But that's about all on that, really. I mean, a crypto related thing with the World Cup was one of the trades I was in, which got ruined by FTX going down. I still got out with profit, but not as much. Was one of the tokens was called Chili's, and they basically uh, involved with fan tokens or things like that. So they were having a great run up towards the World Cup, and then obviously the whole FTX thing went down. I've still got out with profit, and it's actually run back up since, but it's a bit of a shame that got ruined by it. But narratives are good for if you can find a good narrative for a token like that. There was Doge was pumping when Elon took over Twitter because people were talking about it being integrated. Chili's in because of the World Cup. So when you're looking for a good trade, if something has a really good narrative behind it that can kind of push it forwards, then that kind of gives it strength and can give you a bit more, not security because nothing's ever sure, but if there's a real good narrative, then you say, yeah, okay, this has got a good reason to go up in price, and then you just got to get out before everyone else does, because at some point everyone's looking to get out. This week, so the Italian PM, but she got voted in very recently. She's what the media would describe as, I think, far right, but isn't actually far right. Just describes that by the media. They hate anyone who's not completely left wing on their side. But I mean, I've seen a couple speeches from her and stuff, and she seems to talk a whole lot of sense. But she was talking a big thing recently, which I was only watching it yesterday. Very good. Apparently, Macron, the French president, basically was having a few choice words to say to her or about her, and she responded. And basically, you should go and watch it. Look at Italian PM talking about France. Go and watch the video. She's basically explaining about how I think it's maybe something to do with immigrants. obviously there's the whole kind of immigrant crisis at the moment. I think that Italy have basically said that they won't take. I think they won't take men or young men. They said something that they won't take. I don't know if they said they won't take anyone, but something. So maybe they're being rerouted to France. Maybe that's why he was annoyed. I didn't follow the whole story, but basically what she was saying, which is true, is basically talking about France and the way that in Africa there's still, again, watch the video to get all the facts. I think she said maybe about 13 countries, could be less, that basically France print their money for them. So it's basically still like colonial money. And that basically in return for France doing that, these countries have to give them, she was saying about 50% of their, what's even the word, their goods, or whether they're like gold, like some of the countries are very rich in gold and whatever they produce, they have to give 50% to France in return for France printing their colonial money. And that basically what she was saying is that obviously that's ridiculous. Firstly, shouldn't be happening in this day and age. Secondly, she's saying that instead of bringing in all the illegal immigrants, and all this immigration from Africa, all you need to do is return Africa to the African people and allow them to use the assets they have, and then the countries will be in a much better state. They won't need to come all the way to Europe. Some African countries have, not every single one, but a lot of them are so rich in terms of assets they have, in terms of things like gold, silver, diamonds, other thing, uranium, probably other things that you can mine and whatever. But they've been fleeced by Western countries. France being one, Britain probably is one, China probably doing some. They build a lot of infrastructure in there. A lot of these countries come in, say, "Oh, we'll help you do this in return for da. Take it all." Like they could be, you look at like the Arab nations where you got like, obviously Qatar with the World Cup, Dubai, Saudi Arabia, all these countries, they've got tons of oil and they use their resources in order to become very rich, uh, and very, very well off nations. And a lot of African countries have similar levels of resources, but obviously the reasons why they are not so well off and so sort of powerful, maybe. I mean, the Middle East, the Arab countries, they do have power. The reason they're not so well off and are not so sort of first world advanced is because they're basically still having stuff stolen by countries that have been in years ago and supposedly left but haven't left and have taken their stuff. The US as well, of course, they're a big one for that. And basically saying the solution is just get rid of all those colonial things, let them have their own resources to build a developed country that's financially stable with plenty of money, and they could be in a similar position to these Arab countries in the Middle East. So I thought that was really powerful what she said about. I agreed with it, and there's a lot of things that people don't know. Like no one would think that people don't understand stuff like that. That's still going on today. So if you were to just give them what's theirs and allow them to use it, then their countries would be in a position where maybe they wouldn't want to leave, and that would help it. I think as a whole, really, the world has kind of lost its way with a lot of things, and with kids and raising kids being one of them. We have the rise of things like ADHD, huge numbers of autism compared to what it used to be. And there's obviously things behind it. There's obviously factors behind it. ADHD is the one that I'm really going to talk about more. To me, ADHD really is just a label given for people acting a certain way and being a certain way. I don't really think ADHD is so much an illness. Again, similar to I spoke about depression, anxiety, and stuff like that. ADHD is just a response to people's surroundings, their environment, the way they're raised, things put in their body. So diet is huge. Diet is massive. Again, speak about it a lot with health and nutrition, but these kids nowadays, they're basically being fed pure sugar, and then you're expecting them to go to school, sit quietly and nicely, just concentrate on what the teacher's saying for, however long it is they're at school, 5, 6 hours a day, being fed pure sugar and nothing else. And it's ridiculous. Adults couldn't do that. No one could do that. It's ridiculous. So diet's a massive, massive thing. If you have a kid who's been diagnosed with ADHD, you think they have ADHD, they can't concentrate and sit still and whatever, look at what you're feeding them. Okay, kids, sugar. What, like breakfast, cereal. Okay, that's sugar. So they're in sugar for breakfast. They may be having a snack like a breakfast bar, sugar. The food they get at school. So I actually, my oldest son is at school for a while. He did have school dinners for a bit, but now I make him lunches to take with him because I mean the school dinners are a joke too. He comes home and tells us that for his school dinner he had a slice of pizza, some dry pasta, like plain pasta, nothing on it, and I can't remember maybe some vegetable. Diet again, sugar, pasta, carbohydrates, sugar, pizza, carbohydrates, that's sugar. That's what they're fed. And then, you know, kids come home and they're given junk food for dinner at McDonald's or whatever, and you expect them to be able to sit and concentrate and sit still. It's just ridiculous. There's no way on earth that would happen. I mean, kids really, even fed a good diet, kids aren't just going to sit still and concentrate for hours and hours a day, especially boys. So boys, ADHD is obviously diagnosed a lot more within boys because boys are boys. They're full of energy. Young boys, they want to be out playing and exploring and climbing trees and doing whatever. They've got energy. That's what they're meant to have. Lots of energy. Back in the day, they would be running around and fighting, and then they'd learn to do the things that men do, take them hunting and do whatever. They're meant to be full of energy. They're not built to sit around all day and learn. So even with proper nutrition, if you're going to expect them to sit there and do nothing, that is pretty unachievable. Girls are better at it, and girls are better at school. Girls have always been better at school because they're built differently. Women are built differently. They're probably more patient. They're able to just kind of sit and take things in for a bit longer than men. Men will naturally want to be doing stuff. Obviously, with how society has been poisoned and changed over the years, there's a lot of blokes nowadays who happily would sit around doing nothing, unfortunately. But naturally, that's not how they should be, and not how they should be as boys. If your boy is happy to sit around and do nothing all day, that's not a good thing. You shouldn't be happy about that. So I think really with something like ADHD, the main thing is the diet. You need to feed your kids properly. That's the most important stage of their life. Like their body is growing. What you feed them can change how they look in future. It's going to change how they interact with the entire world, the type of person they are. It's going to change everything about their lives, is how you're feeding them and making them nutritious. Like when I see a fat kid, like if I see a young kid who's obese and fat, I just feel really sorry for them because that's not their fault at all. That is the parent. If you've got an obese kid, it's your fault. You're the problem. And really, it's I would say class it as pretty much a form of child abuse. Like that child, they don't make those decisions themselves. They don't understand things like that. They have no say. If you're literally feeding them to the point of being obese, you're literally shortening their life and reducing their quality of life by a huge amount. You need to accept some responsibility, own up, and feed them properly. They're a child. When they become an adult, they can make their own decisions. But as a child, it's completely and utterly your choice. So when I see kids like that, I feel sorry for them. I feel really sorry for them because it's not their fault. It's their parents who brought them up like that. And the other thing I would say, along with um, diet, the other thing is like behavior, discipline. If you don't discipline your child, then they're going to be naughty. Doesn't mean they've got ADHD, it just means that you didn't discipline them. Basically, every human being will push the boundaries as far as they can go and get away with everything they can get away with. It's just natural. Even as an adult, in a job, if you can get away with doing absolutely no work at your job and getting paid for it, you'll do that. If they're going to check up on you and make sure you're at least doing a little bit, then you'll probably just do that minimum bit. If they're going to push you to do a bit more, then you might have to do a bit more. But basically, everyone will try and get away with as much as they can. It's a natural thing, and it's exactly the same for kids. When they're born, as soon as they're born, they're learning the whole time. So the sooner you put boundaries in place, saying that this is bad, you can't do that, you can't get away with that, they're going to learn, and then they're going to be well behaved. If you're going to let them get away with everything for the first 3, 4 years of their life, and then you think you're going to suddenly then discipline them, you're going to be in for a shock because it's not going to happen. Kids nowadays are just massively, massively spoiled as a whole, really. And it's sad, really, because you think you're doing the right thing and being good to them. I see. I saw this quote recently, actually, which I really liked. It was very good. I can't remember who it was who quoted it, but basically, everyone nowadays is kind of like it's a real thing inside that people. I want to give my kids what I didn't have. See, I didn't get all this stuff when I was little, so I want to give it to them and just spoil them with everything, which is terrible. You're making them a terrible person. But it said basically, you shouldn't want to give your kids everything you didn't have. You should want to teach them everything you didn't know. So knowledge is a much better thing to give to your kids than physical stuff. That allows them to then go and create the best life possible for themselves, armed with this knowledge which you didn't have, and they can create a better life for themselves rather than you trying to hand everything to them on a plate. They think they should just get everything they want as soon as they ask for it. They're spoiled. Then they go out into the real world and find out nothing's like that. Probably end up with depression and just can't even interact properly in life. So don't give your kids everything in terms of physical stuff. Teach them, give them the knowledge. If you made mistakes in certain things, if you found something was good and something wasn't, there's certain things work. Across your life, you will have learned certain things. Some people maybe haven't learned much because they don't listen. Other people have learned lots, but stuff you've learned that took you years of your life to learn, teach them to your kids. They haven't got to waste those years learning them, and they start off from a better position to make a good life. There's a stat that most kind of families that, like, if someone were to amass wealth, they come from nothing, make millions, normally within 3 generations, that will be completely lost because he's come from nothing, he's made millions, then he'll spoil his children and give them everything growing up so they don't feel they have to work for anything. They'll just inherit his money. They don't work, they have no work ethic, which is fine, they do get his money, but then the money's starting to run out, and then the next generation are being taught by lazy, entitled people. So they're also lazy, entitled, and the money goes, and then eventually they go back to being poor, and then maybe someone grows up with the right work ethic and mindset to make that money back. But the main thing is that knowledge is power, and handing stuff to people does not help anyone. Just handing people stuff is not the way to do it because people become entitled and spoiled. And even if you do it as someone as an adult, it will be the same. If someone's really in trouble and they need help to get out of a certain situation, if you were to just say, hand them a ton of money, say, here you go, here's a load of money to get you out of trouble, you're fine, go. More than likely, within a certain amount of time, they'll be back into that same position because they haven't learned anything. They just think, someone will bail me out again. What you should do if you want to help them is go in and teach them. Say, look, this is where you went wrong. This is what you shouldn't have done. This is what you should have done. This is what you need to do next time. From here, we can do this and this, and I'll help you along the way. Don't just hand stuff to people because it doesn't teach them anything. And in the long run, it doesn't help them. actually makes things worse. So it's not a good thing to do. And that's what you have to look at with your kids. Don't think about right now. Yeah, if they don't get that toy they want, they might cry right now in the present. People are living too much in the present. Think about in the future. Yeah, they might cry right now, but think about 10 years down the line when they're an adult and they can't get their own way and all they can do is cry. No, you want to teach them the lesson now of that you don't get everything your own way. You have to earn things. Teach them it now and it will stand them in good stead when they're older, rather than they learn things the hard way when they're older and end up completely screwed up in their life. So that's basically my thoughts on that for now. I'll probably talk about that again in the future because there's quite a lot to talk about with that. But if you have a kid who's diagnosed as ADHD, look at their diet. I guarantee you they're not eating a good diet. And also look at the environment they're in, how they're disciplined, are they spoiled, are they given everything they need to? And you need to put structure in place, boundaries in place, and work. It won't be easy. So I'm going to leave it there for this week. I will speak to you again in 2 weeks' time. Hey guys, thank you so much for tuning into the show. I really hope that you enjoyed it. If you have any questions or topics you'd like us to cover on the podcast, or you'd like to appear on it, then please contact us at hwpoduk@gmail.com, on our website, which is healthwealthuk.com, or on any of our social medias, which are at hwpoduk. Please make sure you like, subscribe, share it with all your friends and family, and we will see you next week.